Right, I was offered to give some reflections from the perspective of a local authority, which I'm happy to do because reflections isn't quite the same as offering answers or concrete actions. So I've also gone paperless, which means I'm going to be looking at my mobile phone in terms of speaking notes. If I'm looking down, it's not because I'm downcast, it's just because I can't see very well. So I joined Waltham Forest about 6 months ago, and in the short time that I've been with the borough, there are a few numbers that have started to define my role and my job. So I'm in charge of housing strategy and also of housing development, and the numbers that I carry around with me all the time are the fact that we need to figure out a way to build 1,800 homes a year. The most we've managed in a year to date is around 960, so that's a massive challenge for us. The second number that I carry around is the fact that we've got more than 8,000 people on our housing waiting list, and at any one point in time we've got more than 2,000 people in temporary accommodation. Those are the three things that really are dominating the way that local authorities are thinking about housing, housing supply, and bringing it forward. And I think that's the context that we all need to understand when we think about the ways that local authorities are trying to engage with community-led housing groups, because there is a challenge there. There is a challenge there about scale, and there is a challenge there about resourcing. In terms of where we are as a local authority, we're very much on a journey. It's a big ask for local authorities to try and engage with community-led housing in a way that makes sense for the groups that are coming forward and wanting to build homes that meet their needs, when you're stood looking at it from the perspective of an authority that is trying to double its housing output. In terms of the way that our borough thinks about this, you asked me to talk about why it is that Waltham Forest cares about it. There's a very high-level, enthusiastic commitment to this agenda from amongst our members. They can see that there are benefits that are realised from this approach to delivering housing in other parts of the world, in other parts of London. They're keen to get on board. What they're also very conscious of is they're conscious of their responsibility to meet a very large amount of housing need that often doesn't have a very kind of concrete place to go. So there's a competition here for the resources that are available. We are doing what we can. We have been working with LEV. We have been trying to build capacity amongst our community groups. So we've had a number of networking events, and my colleague Dawn Pollis is here today, and she can tell you about all of the events that we've arranged with these groups. We're getting to know our community-led housing groups. We're getting to know what it is that they want. We're trying to understand what they're prepared to do. We're helping them to work through business cases, and often we find that they may think that they want to do the whole shebang at the beginning of this sort of a process, and then by the time they've actually gone through financial planning and realising what it involves, they're up for something that is more akin to self-finish. So we're not quite at the point where Germany is at the moment, which is that you've got groups who know what they're after competing in an open process. We're actually trying to do both sides of this. We're trying to matchmake by creating opportunities, and we're also trying to bring forward groups that are capable of taking on those opportunities, and it's not a perfect process yet. Just quickly, in terms of why aren't we Germany, why isn't this mainstream, why isn't this just a process that we go through at the moment? As a local authority, I don't think we've clearly articulated what it is that we want from community-led housing or from those groups. So that is responding to the challenge from LEV, which is to actually take a lead and to set out what it is that we want. I have some thoughts, and I think that leads us to a fairly kind of a slightly predictable place, and we might want to challenge that in the discussion actually. So if you were to ask me what do we want from a community-led housing group, I'd be talking about things like financially sustainable, able to deliver at scale, well-governed, transparent, open to lettings from our lettings policy. Now that doesn't really sound very much different from a developer, does it? And I think that's the question mark for us in London when we're thinking about taking this forward. We're all short of land. It's not just that we're not giving land to community-led housing groups. If you work within a local authority and you've got some public land, actually it's not just housing that wants it. Education wants it, adult social care wants it, it's not just housing. And then we find that the groups that we work with, there is an expectation that we will gift land to them. And I'm afraid that land is a valuable commodity that is in short supply. I'm sure that you all know this, but it makes it very difficult for us to make a case around giving this land away. And then finally, and this is kind of the sum of the first two parts really, I don't think we've sufficiently articulated the non-financial return on investment, which means that all of the things that we start to ask our community-led housing groups for, become very difficult to evaluate in a concrete fashion against X amount in terms of a land receipt. And I know that we will talk about best value rather than best price, but look at how much weighting that value is given in any kind of evaluation. Which means that we are driving these community-led housing groups in order to engage with us at the scale that we're being driven to work at, in order to meet the targets that we've got and spend money within spending rounds and respond to spending reviews, to act more and more like developers. And I think that there is a tension there between those two things.